This Christian Horner story continues to develop, and I don't really want to talk about it again, but this is the news. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to come on here and condemn an innocent man to death. The glove doesn't fit, so you must acquit. We can't start to make assertions about innocence or guilt. We don't have enough information, and for that, we need to wait for the official statements from Red Bull HQ. However, that doesn't mean that we can't speak to what's being reported. In stark contrast to many of the mainstream media, not least Sky Sports F1, who completely negated to talk about it at all. I mean, what is this? Starling's Russia or something, to where we can't talk about investigations ongoing if it's Christian Horner or a senior figure in the F1 pod. See, I disagree with that fundamentally. Now, I know for Sky and the likes of, it's a case of once bitten, twice shy. They need to have access to Max Verstappen, the three-time champion, soon to be four in all likelihood. And they've been punished already by Christian and the behemoth that is Red Bull. You'll remember that Ted Gravitz had spoken about 2021 being a robbery, and Red Bull had imposed an embargo as far as their media activities with Sky Sports were concerned. What Sky cannot afford to have is a repetition of that. But this is a very dangerous precedent being set by media and sport and the way the two entities interact, lest we forget the way the media were quick to cover the apparent conflict of interest at the hands of Susie Wolff. You remember that everybody was talking about that the instant that the FIA said that they were going to investigate it. Oh, and by the way, the FIA have been very stum on this. Absolutely zero, not a peep from the regulatory body of F1. And that might seem a bit strange, mightn't it? Now, of course, you can make the argument that this is an internal matter for Red Bull to be concerned with. It is their responsibility. They are culpable for getting to the bottom of this, for understanding how much truth or fiction there is in all of these allegations. But I say all that to say this: the story has evolved overnight. We have additional details. Firstly, I want to set the table here, and context is really important. First-hand sources matter, and they are different. There are levels of credibility. For example, the Times you would trust in the UK more than you trust the Daily Express or the Sun. That's not to say that they still don't need to verify their sources, double check two sources each and every single time, lest they want to get involved in libel and defamation lawsuits. And I understand through sources at the 11th hour that the Telegraph and Nick Van Haren, the equivalent of them in the UK, say Piers Morgan and the Sun, that they have a history of trollery, that they will bend the truth from time to time, and they have agenda. Now, I said in yesterday's video that Nick Van Haren shouldn't report this unless he's absolutely 100% nailed on. He cites in the article that he's seen the evidence. Christian Horner is an absolute fighter pilot of a team principal, and if there is a glimmer of untruth to that story, then expect to see yourself in court, Nick Van Haren. And true to form, the rumour, as we understand it, is that Christian Van Horner has threatened legal action against the newspaper, the publication that Nick Van Haren writes for. And it was always going to be this way. If you know Christian Horner as I know him, as a team principal and as a man, he is a fighter. Accuse him of serious things that are in progress at your peril. And the F1 world will watch this with bated breath as the threat of legal action from Christian Horner against the Dutch publication plays out over the next couple of weeks. And I say all that to say this, that Red Bull have had enough of this rumour. They realise now that the more that this continues to play out in front of the world's press and media, the greater the reputational hazard, the greater the downside on their bottom line. Ergo, they are keen to wrap this up as soon as possible. Now, the independent investigator, the barrister responsible for getting to the bottom of this, somehow has gone missing. AWOL, missing in action, amongst many a rumour of bribery and attempted settlements. Chaos. Christian Horner is nothing if not a fighter, and don't be surprised that he's fighting these allegations rightly or wrongly. One might be forgiven for assuming that Max, Checo, Marku and Oliver Mintzlaff would all be pulling in the same direction, but apparently the 51% owner, the Tajuvidya family, are pulling in a different direction. They're rooting for Christian Horner to remain as team principal in 2024 thereafter. Oliver Mintzlaff, GmbH Red Bull, the HQ guys at Salzburg, think that Horner's tenure as Team P may have come to its suitable end. And this is no better exemplified by the rumour that Horner was offered a way out. Resign and we say that you were sick. These allegations will never come to the fore. Christian, of course, declined that offer. You might also be surprised to learn that the Times have reported that Max Verstappen was an awfully supportive of Christian Horner at the Red Bull launch this weekend past, saying something to the effect, and I paraphrase, that nothing has changed between me and Horner. Was Checo Perez, on the other hand, infinitely more supportive of Christian Horner? Was his rhetoric, Christian Horner is our TP. I am looking forward to embarking upon the 24th season with the man through whom we've garnered all this success. Oh, indeed, there is fissure at the Red Bull team. And oh, by the way, all this against the backdrop of an accuser so steadfast and stubborn in their accusations of Christian Horner that they declined an apparent £650,000 with a view to exert legal action. Oh, indeed, the world will be watching next week as this story reaches its resolution.